Hey everybody, welcome to the Three Geeks Conversation. I have Tim Barnes and Destiny with us. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you. Man, I was looking at your website and your kind of like the history of what you've been doing. You've been involved in a lot of cool stuff, like a lot of cool like sketch comedy writing, like web series, and now podcasting. You're going to start talking about doing a podcasting with Judge Travis. Do you want to talk about that at least a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Judge Travis, this is one of those weird. First of all, tell me about yourself. Are you creatives? Do you write things on your own? Have you ever pitched an idea that you want to bring to life?
Me, no. Destiny, yes. Yeah, Destiny.
Okay. The truth of Judge Travis is that it started off as something that I just pitched when I knew that a podcast network was looking for like an idea for a specific type of talent. And I'm used to pitching ideas. One thing I've learned in writers' rooms and from stand-up is that you just got to keep the train moving. You can't get too obsessed with the ideas or anything like that. And this started off as just like one of those. I had a meeting. I pitched a couple ideas. This was one of them. Didn't hear anything back really. Like I heard that, they might kind of like it. Months later, I found out that they liked it. I got paid to write a pilot. But slowly, strangely, very slowly, I pitched this back in the summer of 2021, everybody. I started to care deeply about this project. Maybe because after the strikes, it's the only project. Maybe that's part of it. But the truth of it is that this is a show that combines my favorite things. One of my favorite shows is the Larry Sanders Show. I love watching behind the scenes of anything, like the behind the scenes of Star Wars: The Phantom Menace is my favorite. One of my favorite movies of all time. It's like George Lucas doesn't realize it's a comedy. And I also love things like the Bernie Mac show. And so this is a combination of those two things where it's like the behind the scenes of a court show, like a Judge Mathis or a Judge Judy, and how it happens in the judge's personal life affects his verdicts. And part of why I started to care a whole lot about it is because when I lived I moved to LA at one point. I'm from LA, but then I went to Chicago for about four years to do stand-up, and then I went to New York when I started continued to do stand-up, and then I got to LA in 2019 for my first TV writing job. They did a revival of All That on Nickelodeon, and so for that job I was living with my grandpa for 6 months, and it was surreal, it was fun, it was great. It kind of felt like a sitcom. And so when the show got greenlit and I got, a talented group of writers together and everything, when I sat down to write the pilot, first of all, that's when I realized first now I have to figure out how I actually care about this pitch that somehow got sold, right? That's part of it. Like you just pitch an idea and then it's like, once it gets picked up, it's like, how do I inject my actual energy into it? Because I feel like selling sometimes is a very different thing. I started to think about why do we love these stern, fatherly or matriarchal figures. And so an element of my grandfather is in the judge, an element of this other character, Jax, who's his producer, is like a little bit of me, but there's all kinds of stuff. The judge is also a little bit of Steve Harvey. It's a little bit of, the Judge Joe Browns, a little bit of the Judge Mathises. It's all of that stuff. And throughout all of that, I think that in terms of writing a show, I think that this is the first project where I feel like I found my voice. And so I'm excited for the world to check it out when the episodes launch on February 11th.
Awesome.
Did you watch like every episode of, say, Judge Judy? Like, this is research.
A little bit. That's the weird thing, though. It's like I was never the type of person who like I gotta tune into my Judge Judy. But what I leaned into was like I remember, there was one major summer. I call it legitimately is the summer I got fat when I lived with my grandma, and she would just like bake a whole pan of biscuits, and I would eat the whole thing. But I just remember how I feel like Judge Judy in my memory, it was like kind of like a new thing at the time, and I remember the joy and actual like knowledge she seemed to be gaining from the show. And so I started thinking a lot about that, just like as a piece of media, why do we love these shows and what is the reality and what is the fiction of it? I'm surprised that it hasn't really been explored in anything yet. That's part of it. Like in this, since 2021, thinking about the show, I've been like, I just want this to come out before someone else kind of tackles it in the right way before. Because we've had Night Court, we've had shows, about, regular judges that aren't on TV, but somehow there hasn't been a show or a movie that's specifically about the behind the scenes, like you could say like the 30 Rock of a court show. And there's something uniquely strange about them because they are most of them, most of the good ones at least are, they're reality television. These are real people that they find in small claims court. And part of how they get them on is that they promise to pay the defendant. I always get the words mixed up a little bit. That's how much I don't really know about court shows, even though I made this. But they promise
out. It's fun.
They promise to pay what's owed, So it's always cases up to a certain amount, but the show is going to pay no matter what. So that's how you get these people on board. It's wild stuff. So that's all. That's what Judge Travis is.
That's incredible. Can I offer an idea for like 8 episodes, and the next season is just like the adjacent movie studios doing like Springer, and like somehow they're like the next door neighbor to Judge Travis. Like,
that'd be so funny.
I love
and
that.
And then you just stair step every season is a different, like you just go down the line of this studio.
The
film lot.
New neighbor every season. That would be pretty funny.
I thought so. But I listened to the trailer for Judge Travis, and like it's a full like cast. Were you involved with the casting of it? Like the people that were pulled in?
Yeah. This is my first time directing something. This is my first time, being the showrunner. I had 4 other writers and each of them have like a dedicated episode that they have a written by credit on. And by far, the element that I learned the most from is the casting process because it's so nerve-wracking. I basically, there's 4 main characters, but every episode has at least 2 litigants because there's always a court case that's highlighted. And it's basically about how, of those 4 main characters, usually there's something weird and personal that they're dealing with. And then somehow, sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big. The court case that's featured parallels this personal issue in some way. But remind me of your question. What was the question?
It was just like, how involved were you with the cast? And I know it's a full like.
Yeah,
I wrote. Each character has a cast member. It sounds like. But.
Yeah, I wrote a letter to everyone that we reached out to be one of the main characters, and the thing that can be frustrating about it is that you just have to wait a while before you hear back, and then when you get a no, it bruises the ego because you never know, especially in Hollywood, what a no really means. Does a no mean that they don't like the material? Is it actually that they're too busy? But then beyond that, it's like while that letter is out and while you don't know the answer, you're starting to make all these like decisions about how the material fuses with the specific actor. And it's interesting for, season 1 of a show where we wrote 8 episodes not knowing who the actors were going to be, not knowing, what the exact tonality of the voice would be. We had these ideas for it. And then the other exciting thing, though, once we kind of landed on who the main characters are, and I'm very happy with them, they all ended up being like very Chicago-centric actors. We got Bashir Salahuddin, who's in that show Southside, and on this show called Sherman Showcase that's hilarious on IFC. And he's in Top Gun Maverick. Is that what it's called? I haven't seen that movie.
Yeah, Top Gun Maverick is the second one. I imagine the first one would be pretty old.
And we have Langston Kerman, who's in Insecure. He's in all kinds of stuff. He pops up in everything. And Brandy Denise, she's a really funny comedian and actor. She was just in the Just for Laughs festival. And she has just the perfect voice to play the bailiff. It's just so real and authentic. And we have Keisha Sharp, a wonderful actor, also a great TV director. And the most exciting to me personally, though, is George Wallace plays Judge Travis's barber. And George Wallace is a legendary comedian. And would you believe he was the easiest person to cast? Because I realized that we follow each other on Twitter. I sent him a DM, and a day later, let me read you this DM I got from him. It blew me away. A day later, he was cast because I told him the premise. I also know how much he loves this classic record. I guess you call it like a party record by this artist named, it's like really old, by this artist named Pigmeat Markham, called Here Comes the Judge. So I kind of referenced that, I think, too, knowing how much he loves just the idea of comedies about judges. I'm not going to read what I wrote to him, but I'll read you his response. He said, Tim Barnes, period. I was late in reading my DMs. I'm over here at the Olympics and whatnot. Sure, I'd love to do it. Call my so-called manager of 17 years. Tell him I said yes. I haven't even called his punk ass. Thank you, sir.
It's just incredible.
I love that.
And can I tell you, like, what's really, touches my heart about it is that, unfortunately, I didn't get to direct him in person. We did it over Zoom when I got back to New York. But his voice just reminds me of the specificity of my grandfather's Southern accent. And so whenever he pops up in these episodes, it's just like, sonically, it just kind of brings everything home into like what I'm trying to get across with the show. Because even though this is audio, the idea is to allow listeners to feel like they're eavesdropping on real conversations that happened. And so all of my notes as a director was just about being natural. Let's go through the scene, figure out what the emotional beats are, what the tonality is. And you get all these variations and you kind of cobble it together in the editing room. But he makes it feel so real, and he kind of, it feels beyond the current moment whenever he pops up. Yeah. It just feels like a true ensemble when he pops up in these episodes. He's wonderful. Yeah.
That's super cool.
Well, that, and you kind of allow the listener to dictate, like, if they have the same type of perceptions, like, well, I'm seeing my grandfather be the barber, you know what I mean? Yeah. Place, like, which I enjoy a lot, is like allowing the user or the listener to kind of guide how they envision the character.
Yeah, there's a lot of little nuggets that I think it's not like super highlighted, but even when it comes down to the music, the first sounds you hear in the trailer and in essentially every episode of the show are these 3 bangs of the gavel. And that's specifically inspired by how that song, Here Comes the Judge, begins. Sure. So there's like I like the idea that this is a part of a long lineage. I'd like to think that once people listen to this, they can see the connection to the things that inspired it, like the Larry Sanders Show and the Bernie Mac Show, which also, interestingly, has it already has a connection. Ken Kwapis directed the first few episodes of the Larry Sanders Show, and I think directed most of the first season of the Bernie Mac Show. There's all kinds of connections. I also found out, have you seen the Larry Sanders Show? I feel like I'm such an old man. It's it came out, it was like one of the first HBO comedies. It's a direct influence on The Office. It's a direct influence on even like The Studio that just came out.
Well, now I need to watch it.
Right.
And I just found out that the person who made the theme song for the Larry Sanders Show, which was like a Gary Shandling show, so, Jewish humor and everything, also did the score for Friday. So I just love finding all of these
just interconnections.
I love fun connections like that.
Yeah.
And I love Friday. So
yeah. See, you love Friday, you'll love Judge Travis. We don't have to keep talking about Judge Travis, but yeah.
Now, did you take any inspiration from other kind of podcasts that do kind of the visual novel? In my mind, I picture like Welcome to Night Vale, things like that, where they're like jumping right into like, hey, this is what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time. Like, can we pull anything from that type of stuff?
A little bit. My goal was to figure out a way to make, on almost like a sitcom level comedy work in the audio space. So the Night Vale, it is a comedy, but it has a certain mood to it. And when I think
it's definitely different.
It's very different. And I think it's kind of, somehow I put it in the same camp of like drama audio series in a way, where there's like, there's like a moodiness, there's like a droning sound to it. There's like, there's a podcast called Valley Heat. Have you heard this show?
I have not.
That is so damn funny, because it really does feel real, but it also very much feels like a King of the Hill type humor. And it's just a guy in Burbank who has a podcast that he's recording in his garage about the goings on in his neighborhood. I cannot explain to you why it's
Tom
so
left
funny.
his trash can out again.
Well, like the first episode, he's convinced that his pool guy is using his trash can as a drug drop, but then he repeats the word drug drop so many times. Like, it's just that guy. It's your neighbor who talks too much whenever you bump into him on the sidewalk. Yeah. And this is the guy with the podcast, and it's so funny. So I think I discovered that after this. But I was just like thinking about what I like and what I don't like. And, everyone's taste is different about specifically situational comedies when they're made in the audio space. And I've had the privilege of making like an animated web series once for Comedy Central. And there's so much that goes into it. There's so much, similarly that goes into audio. Where there's just like so many notes, so many time codes, so many little things that you have to have like a back and forth with people about. I don't think that my animated series was perfect, but it was a web series that's intended to kind of be a proof of concept for something that could be further developed into a TV show. But one of the things that I learned from the plethora of comments that this web series got, where, some people are just like, oh, one of my favorite comments on this animated web series was called Maurice on Mars, which is about 3 episodes about a barista on the first Martian colony. And the barista is black. And there was a comment that just said, "Black people cartoons, ... And I think about that every day. So much. But so... It was the art of like sifting through comments that were just like kind of clearly racist, ones that were racist, but they thought they could explain their way out of being racist. But then there were some comments that were actually informative, and that I was like, okay, you really do have a point there. Like, I don't think that in those 3 episodes, which, there's so many things that factors into, what led to those 3 episodes being the 3 episodes, where it's like, oh, this character doesn't have a motivation per se, so much as things are just happening to the character. And I really did take that to heart. I was like, oh yeah, I ultimately, there was a nugget of truth there. So I thought a lot about that. And so I decided to have this thing that the judge is dealing with for all 8 episodes, which is like his serial infidelity. So that is the theme of this season. That is a theme that also ties into my grandfather, who is the reason I have so many grandmothers. And,
no way. That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's
so
I
just wanted to be grounded in something real all of these episodes. But when you have an open palette, which I feel like animation and audio is, I think the first impulse is to like do everything that you can do with that wide open palette. And people always say like, you can do anything in animation, but at the same time, the actual animators will tell you, well, you're going to have to scale this down because, it still costs money to do anything.
Right.
But I think that it's funnier and more interesting to work with limitations. And so instead of, just having explosions for the sake of explosions, when it comes to the things that are happening behind the scenes of Judge Travis, And we don't make a big deal about it, but you are only hearing things that come from Judge Travis's mic or the bailiff's mic. And so that specific limitation, which I feel like is similar to the limitations that shows like The Office and have for the first couple seasons at least, then there's always a point where it's like, why is the camera in their house right now? You really are stuck with that level of authenticity and realism. And I think that is what makes this show stand out from most, where I think that what seems exciting about being able to explore every angle, because you can, zoom in or have the narrator describe anything. You actually just get to focus on the core of like what is funny between these characters.
Is that what helped drove? Sorry, Destiny, but is that what helped drove 8 episodes? Then is it something that
definitely, yeah.
Because go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, we're gonna say. Yeah.
Oh, I'm always curious. Like, how did you know 8 episodes would be enough, or do you know like, hey, we got 16 more in the tank if you want to? But like,
this is a show where I think it would be so easy to do more. But it sold, and they were like, we want to make 8 episodes of this. Got it. It's kind of like this accident that is now like my favorite thing in the world. But it was also another lesson from that animated web series was like, I wrote all of those episodes. I think I originally, was paid to write. I wrote 5 episodes, and then it was cut down to 3 at some point. And then certain things of like, that in one way, that's how I learned how to work with limitations for the first time, because this was, a web series from Comedy Central, but, you had to stick to this budget. They were like, try and keep them in the coffee shop at all times, even though this is a show about Mars. Part of how I pitched that show is that it's Cheers, but on a Martian colony, basically. So, Cheers, by the way, is a show, and Taxi too, for the most part, 2 of my favorite shows that just takes place in like one location, and they had so many episodes, and that is not
Forever.
An easy thing to do. It's actually, it's like a play.
Yeah.
And the fact that show is beloved and had so many different situations in one location is just a treasure. But that's why I really wanted to bring writers in, because I was like, I have this idea, but if you really want to make a great comedy, similar, basically a TV show. This is basically a TV show, but audio. You really need to bounce ideas off of people, because there's no way that the bailiff character in the show, played by Brandy Denise, would have been as authentic if I didn't have, other writers, if I didn't have writers who are women, if I didn't have writers who are Black women. So I brought in this group of writers, Rebecca O'Neill, Millie Tamarez, my friend Ian Abramson, who I went to high school with, and Ben Holbrook, who's a talented playwright and filmmaker. They all brought like so much magic to these episodes. And I'm just very proud of them, because their specific episodes highlight what each of them are great at. And it's way more fun to promote a show that other people have their hands in than one that's like, oh, it's all me, baby. It's all just my ideas and a button I press on Grok. That's how.
Hey, Grok, did one guy write this?
Right. Goodness. Well, you've told us a lot, like you were able to pull a lot from your personal life as well, and to be able to put into this. Are you able to take things from your professional life, like your time on All That? I think you've written for Jimmy Fallon show, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Were you able to take those experiences and be able to put them into your writing and into this as well?
Definitely. As I mentioned, love behind this. I think it's because my dad, since I was a kid, has worked at Disneyland as a plasterer. So he worked, his job was at the happiest place on earth. But when as a kid, the underlying nature of the happiest place on earth, you start to see behind the facade of
peek behind the curtain.
Peek behind the curtain. And I'm the type of person where I'm less, with almost everything, I'm less interested in religion, but I'm really interested in preachers. Just like I'm less interested in school, but I'm really interested in what's happening in the teacher's lounge. I want to know what preachers are talking about when they get together. I want to know what, like, because
That is good question. Very good question.
And so for all of the jobs I've had in media, I have been fascinated by what, having, the biggest office in these situations, or having, being the host, what that does to people psychologically, what that does to the ego. And I also, luckily got an intimate sense from various jobs of what it feels like, or, or what to me, the pressure and how people deal with the pressure when you are the Black host of a TV show, or when, how people balance that. And so this is the first project that I've had where I could just like really pour what has been interesting to me about that into a set of characters and situations. So Judge Travis, like I mentioned, he's like a little bit of like a Steve Harvey. He's got a bunch of self-help books. But he's also a child actor. So he was basically like, what's the name? I'm forgetting his name. The actor who says, "What you talking about, Willis?" He's a little bit of.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So a part of the premise of the show is that he was a child actor in the late 70s, where he was the only Black person in the sitcom, and he always had one line per episode, but he didn't have a name. So that is his history. So he's got a lot of just sort of like entertainment industry baggage, a lot of racial baggage, and a lot of, male ego baggage. And so, it's about these types of people that you have in your life who are, what's the best way to say it? Where you hate to love them and you love to hate them. That kind of that kind of vibe.
Kind of like the BoJack Horseman effect. Like that's I would picture. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone has a character like that in their lives. We all do. Makes it very relatable.
And Destiny mentioned you work on the Jimmy Fallon show and kind of doing the sketches. What was that like? Was that one of those scenarios where you had to pitch a show idea and like you're in a room full of people and like the best one won? Or like how did that usually work?
It's a bit like that. My time. So I had that first job. My first official job writing for television was at Nickelodeon. They did a revival of all that. And then when I got to the Tonight Show, I knew I was going to get the job right before the pandemic hit, and then the pandemic hit. And then I wasn't sure if like, am I still going to have to? I didn't know what is this new world that we're in. And so then, all the late night shows started doing the shows from home. And so that's the world that I entered. I wrote for The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon for just about a year and a half from my apartment.
Wow.
So I actually never met Jimmy in person. I never met, 99% of my coworkers in person. Never met any of the celebrities in person, but I did get to talk to Magic Johnson on Zoom. I got to explain to Gal Gadot how to do a bit where she ate American fast food for the first time.
Were you also eating the fast food? That'd be really funny. I was like, you do it like this. And you need you're so good.
What's so funny about that one, every now and then because I still have this text thread that is so funny to me that I found this text thread on accident a couple years ago because I was trying to remember what my missus, what her favorite order is from Taco Bell. And so I just typed in Taco Bell into my messages, and then I found this old thread where, so there was this bit where they wanted, I mean, this is before the current state of the Middle East. Gal Gadot wouldn't be someone that I'm personally excited to write, a bit for, but I get a call or a message, and like sometimes, so the show is divided between sketch writers and monologue writers. And when you're a sketch writer, it's just like sketches, desk bits, games, things like that. And sometimes it's stuff that you pitch that gets a green light, and they say move forward with this, or they pair you with a person. But sometimes it's an idea that's kind of in the ether, and they're like, everyone else is too busy. Can you do this? So I ended up producing this bit where Gal Gadot eats American snacks for the first time, fast food for the first time, and Jimmy eats Israeli snacks for the first time. But the thing is, Gal Gadot is in London. So this text thread that I found is us trying to find the exact, the equivalent of American fast food at the London Taco Bells or the London KFCs or the London.
And they're very different.
So then we go, it's
different.
like, you cannot imagine the level of detail and scrutiny that goes into everything at this, famous late night show. But then, my memory of the show is just like logging onto a Zoom and saying to Gal Gadot, did you get your bag of tacos? So while the world is on fire, that's another,
The world's on fire, and you're just trying to figure out if Gal Gadot has her tacos.
You're trying to afford your own bag of tacos. You gotta make this stuff work. Right?
You know what? I never met Jimmy in person, but the whole time was surreal. It was just a surreal time. It felt like the Twilight Zone. And because of that, like I always Conan was my guy. Conan is my idea of late night. I remember even during the pandemic, that's when he officially stopped doing the late night show. And that was like a sad moment for me. But I got, in the pandemic, writing for the Tonight Show, I tried to process certain things have just shifted to a certain degree. Like the late night that defined my youth isn't necessarily the late night that exists now. Like the late night that exists now is just rightfully so in some ways to stay, relevant, a little bit more YouTube oriented. Yeah. And that's just when I was coming up, the late night that I wanted to write for was just kind of appeared and then disappeared and became a myth immediately after. You're like, did you see I saw this crazy thing on Conan last night. Did you see it? And if the other person didn't see it, you had to describe it. And that was part of the fun. Yeah. But now everything is a clip. So yeah, that was when I actually, for the first time in a long time, I think I used to see some episodes of the Larry Sanders Show. It was that period where I actually just dedicated a month to watching the Larry Sanders Show, because it was a show about the behind the scenes of a late night show. And Larry Sanders was in the running to take over for Carson. He might have been in the running to take over for the late show that Conan ended up getting. But instead of and he had offers to have an actual late night show. Instead of doing that route, he was instead, I want to make a show about about the ego and the pathos and of what it's like to be in that position for an actual late night show. And it is, there's certain elements that don't hold up to modern scrutiny, but the core of it is just about character and characters who love each other, but because of everything don't know how to get to that. But it's also very funny. So yeah, I think I answered your question. I tend to go into tangents.
That's the most fun. So, fun question I like to ask is, if you could go back and give early career Tim any advice, what would it be?
Gonna
make you think.
Yeah, that is really making me think. I'm trying to think of some of the major mistakes that I made. I think it's just, the same advice I think most people would give themselves when they're younger, which is just try not to overthink try to live a little bit more, because that gives you more to talk about and to write about. And this is turning into therapy, but really, I wish that I earlier in my life took the steps to be less compartmentalized. Like, my biggest issue is that I have everything in separate buckets. But that might be because I had so many grandmas as a kid. I just had
I bet you have some sweet sweaters.
yeah.
Right.
But so I think there's a logic to why I'm so compartmentalized. But as I get older, it's hard to keep up those separate. It's not like I have separate lives or anything. It's just that there's no interconnectivity between a lot of the things. For a long time, there was no interconnectivity. So I'm trying to get better at that. Like, make sure that my comedy life is cohesive with my real life and my romantic life and all that stuff. I'm trying to get accustomed to the idea that everything is just one big mush instead of like separate boxes. Yeah.
That's a difficult one, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have like 2 grandmothers, and I struggle with that. So that makes me feel any better. I did have a question for you, because you did something that would stress me out, and I'd love to get your experience on it. Man on the street, did you actually go up to people and just start pulling people off? That would make me so nervous, man. I was shaking watching it. I couldn't.
No, that's really, really fun to me, weirdly. I think my whole comedy career was a shock to a lot of my family and even friends, because I'm generally a pretty quiet person. Wasn't, the most, excitable person in anything. But and in writers' rooms, I think I'm the type where I'm less like tossing out ideas constantly as opposed to like waiting for the right moment to say the exact right thing that kind of can trigger the person who knows how to do act outs, or can get people on the right train of thought. But yeah, that man on the street, I think the one you're talking about is at the, like, one of those GOP
it's walking up.
That is somehow so fun to me. And I also rarely sometimes I do get nervous around celebrities, but I rarely get nervous, because it's almost like a self-deprecating judo move where it's like, well, you just met me, so you must not be that big of a deal. You just met me. You just met me? Okay. You're just a guy.
That says something about you.
It can be like that with this too. It's same thing with the waiting, because we're just like, we're just a podcast, and then we get people and we're like, you're with us? Really? You said yes? So it's cool.
We're going to cut this out.
Yeah, probably. But no, it is. It's cool to have that moment, especially when it is work related, and it gets to be something cool, like that DM, like that instant. Like, that's just a cool moment, and it's kind of it all just kind of makes it worth it.
Yeah. It was just, that George Wallace DM is like perfectly crafted, and he probably had no idea how meaningful it was to me, not just because of who he is, but because of how long some of this process is of like casting people for something. It was just like the next day, it was like, he's on board.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
I just liked how many shots he took at his manager. I enjoyed that a lot.
That makes it so much better.
My so-called manager
of 17 years. And that's like part of it too. That's how my grandpa would talk too. Like, it was just like, I'm so glad. And what's funny is, again, we wrote these episodes not knowing who would play them. And there's something that happens at the end of episode 1 of Judge Travis where, it's very easy to not see George Wallace's character again. But the other writers loved writing for his character's name is Greg. They loved writing for Greg so much. They're like, he has to like be back on the show. So like by episode 4, he's like a consistent character throughout the rest of the episodes. And I'm so glad that they did that, especially because like at the time I had no idea I would get George Wallace to play the role. And now he's like one of my favorites. He's like one of the most delightful. Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
And maybe a dumb question, but are all the episodes recorded? Like, is everything in the can? They're just ready to be released?
Yeah, everything's in the can. The only thing new is I finally recorded credits a couple weeks ago, and it's been in the can for a while. So I'm excited, really, really excited. That's finally going to be out there, and the goal is to see if there's any viability to turning this into an actual television show, either live action or animated. Or I would love to write more episodes, but more than anything, I'm just happy to get the show out there. And my hope, like, it's so hard, I feel, to get regular people to listen to a scripted audio show. That's what I want for the show. Regular people, truck drivers. I'm trying to get, that working man, that Bernie Sanders, blue.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
To listen to this, because it I feel like it's almost like improv, where like normal people don't go to improv shows, but more if you had a sign outside of 2 bars right next to each other, and one said stand-up show and the other said improv show, you're going to get a wider breadth of people in the stand-up show than the improv show. So I'm trying to get that general audience.
Oh, I'd be an improv.
Yeah, yes, and you're weighing everybody.
Yeah. I like fun stuff. What advice would you have? Sorry, Justin. What advice would you have for any other writers that are trying to get into, film, television, things like that? Probably similar to your younger self, but do you have any good advice that you could give to those people?
I think I feel like everyone says this now, but you have all the tools in your hand, and the industry has never been more on fire. I mean, it was literally on fire at the beginning of last year, but now it's like psychologically on fire. No one knows what anything is. No one knows what they're going to be next year. Everyone is just like looking at YouTube for answers. So just go on to put the right stuff onto YouTube. I saw something where it's I forget the name of the filmmaker, but they make these like short horror films, and one of them, which I think is called like The Face of God, is going to be directed by Sam Raimi and co-produced by Monkey Paw Productions, which is Jordan Peele's production company. And this started off as a YouTube video. So you have everything at your disposal to experiment and find your audience. And, the downside of the internet, I feel, is that like everything is kind of out there. Like everyone's talking about 2016 right now, and I'm looking at some of these 2016 photos, and I just I might go on like a deleting spree. There's no blackface or anything like that, but it's just like, I just don't like what I'm looking at.
Yeah. It's fair.
It's just all somehow still there. Yeah.
I didn't even see that little thing. I was like, no, I'm not the same person I was then.
Now it premieres February 11th. Is that the whole show? Or are you going every other week or every week?
I'm doing this Apple TV Plus style, baby. The first 3 episodes are releasing on the 11th, and then the remaining 5 are coming out the following Wednesdays. So download. I feel like the first 3 episodes gives you everything you need to know about the main characters, the main situation, and once you get past that, that's where the real fun begins. You really start to figure out what's going on between Percy and his wife. You really start to get a sense of whether or not this TV judge is really going to become a Supreme Court justice. You really start to, dive into some interesting territory.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we have those trailers, so we will be able to edit those in here. That way our audience can see those as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. No, sorry. I was thinking about it because that's one of my friends just became a lawyer, so I get random court cases sent to me, but like, I just did this, or I just like. Did you look into like actual court cases for like your research for the show at all?
A little bit. Like a lot of them are just like based on interesting debates more than anything. Like one of the cases about how people get their dogs married or whatever.
Sure, or like marriage or something.
Yeah. yeah. And now they want to get a divorce because they find out the other dog's been cheating on the stuff like that. But then the idea of Percy Travis's history as a child actor, now that I think about it, there are so many elements of like every job I've ever had in this because I worked at all that with like kid actors and somehow this show is just like everything that I've ever. That's why I'm so excited about it. It's like things that have just like been in my head are coming out here. What was I talking about though? What was
whatever you want to, my man.
The question? Oh, about court cases. Yeah. So the idea is that for the most part, Judge Travis is the adjudicator to the stars. So he does big picture court cases somehow, which I think could potentially become an actual thing. When I think about the fact that we're betting on literal wars or we're betting on, who's going to win. Who's gonna win? Like so many things are televised. So many things that we wouldn't think are things that people watch on TV are things that people watch on TV. So the first case is about an actor from a major movie suing a makeup artist, something that you wouldn't imagine seeing. Like if Timothée Chalamet were to be on Judge Judy for something. But I don't think we're too far off. I really don't think we're too far off. When this show was written during the Biden administration. Miraculously, it's still funny enough to fit everything now, but I just think that we have predicted certain things with this show because it was laughable to some of the producers that Judge Travis could be in the running to be a Supreme Court justice. Now, that does not seem far-fetched.
Not far-fetched.
And the most shocking thing I learned in the writing of this is that there are a shockingly low level of rules for who can become a Supreme Court justice. As long as you meet the age requirement, there's generally nothing else that can stop someone from becoming a Supreme Court justice. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to have anyone can. So if one of these current Supreme Court justices kick the bucket, I would not be surprised if Steve Harvey, someone like that, would be in the running to be the next one. That's I'm in. That's one thing.
Sign me up, Justin. Also, 2027.
When the show was written, and I want to make it very clear, the dynamics of this judge character. A lot of it comes from my own grandfather when it comes to relationship things to a certain degree. But at the time that the show was written, the only thing I knew about Judge Mathis was that he was an honest family man. Like that was like the elements of Judge Travis that are Judge Mathis have nothing to do with like philandering or anything. It's just like a personality, a TV personality type. That 8 episodes are written. We're gearing up to actually start recording the episodes, and then I see like a TMZ thing of like Judge Mathis, apologizing to his wife for what I assume is cheating. We somehow predicted that. And there are elements of some of these court cases and what the finale, I think, also is somehow very tied up with a lot of things happening just with the institutions of the entertainment industry right now. And I don't know how we did it. That's all I'm trying to say. It's like, I don't know how we just had our fingers on the pulse somehow on this show.
It's the Simpsons effect.
Yeah, somehow this show has a Simpsons effect. So some of the cases, like there's a case that has to do with an actual case that Conan O'Brien was involved in, where someone who wrote a bunch of jokes on Twitter was saying that Conan's late night show stole their Twitter jokes. And I thought that was very interesting. So there's a court case that's about that kind of thing. But somehow, we always pick our moments with the court cases to make sure that they are in some way connected to something that's happening with the characters that we care about. So I'm really into the idea of just like not being funny for the sake of just being funny, but being funny with a purpose and being a funny way that like moves the story forward. But yeah, that was a lot of the fun of the show, honestly.
Awesome. Well, Tim, where can folks find you online? Is there anything else you want to promote before we kind of
No, that's mainly it. You can find everything you need to know about me at timbarnescomedy.com. You can find everything you know about Judge Travis at judgetravis.com. And I also have a newsletter called Letters from African America, where I email 5 jokes by 11 a.m. Eastern every weekday, and you get to vote on your favorite. And I highlight some other great comedy writers, and it's something that I hope to bring other Black comedy writers into the fold in at some point when I know that I can, pay them basically. But right now it's just sort of the beginning stages of what I hope is like a great newsletter hub for people who like comedy about the news.
Awesome.
Now, every day you send 5 new jokes?
Every day I send 5 new jokes.
Is that stressful?
It somehow gets easier with time. It's not.
I
mean, but what's weird? It is stressful to email a joke as opposed to just posting it on Twitter or whatever. That is the only stress element. It's like this is going into people's inboxes, and I always lose track of like who is subscribed to my newsletter. And there are some like very notable people who are subscribed. And when I have like an off day with some of my jokes, like sometimes I do feel, I can't believe this is, this person is reading this. But it's just like I like keeping like a daily practice for the things that I enjoy doing. And I just really, really like writing jokes. And, certain as all these apps are evolving and devolving, like at least I have the emails of the people who like my stuff. And I'm just trying to like present things to them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps you fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you preparing the court case for when someone steals one of your jokes from your email? Listen.
I know. Yeah.
I sent this November 3rd.
Please, as per my previous email.
Yeah. It's also legally sound to send emails because it's like every email is my pre-existing IP. So
yeah, that's right.
Right.
I timestamped it. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tim.
Thank
Happy
you.
to have you.
Thank you for having me. I hope that this was fun. I hope that
absolutely.
when you do watch the Larry Sanders Show that you enjoy it. And I really hope that you listen to Judge Travis when it comes out.
I'm going to do all of them. I'm going to text you when I watch that show. 5 jokes from it every day.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, guys.